Let's begin by reviewing the major alliances of World War I. In 1882, the Triple Alliance was formed between the countries of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. To counter this alliance, France, Great Britain, and Russia formed their own alliance in 1907, the Triple Entente. When World War I broke out in 1914, the Triple Alliance was more or less pitted against the Triple Entente. The Triple Alliance became known as the Central Powers, while the Triple Entente became known as the Allied Powers, or just the Allies. There is one exception here, and that is Italy. Italy basically wimped out once the war started and opted to remain neutral. Then it eventually switched sides and joined the Allies. The important thing to remember here is that even before war broke out in 1914, the major European powers were involved in systems of entangling alliances. This meant that if any one country went to war against any other belligerent country, all the countries would become involved because of their binding alliances. Not a good situation. The spark that set off World War I was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand by a Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip. This set off the July Crisis, a diplomatic crisis among the major European powers, lasting throughout most of the month. Negotiations proved useless as ultimatums and counter-ultimatums eventually led to the outbreak of war. A moment ago, I mentioned how Italy switched sides during the war. Let's talk about this in a little more detail. When war broke out, Italy basically felt it had little to gain from entering the war on the side of the Central Powers. Furthermore, relations between Italy and Austria-Hungary had been strained for years. Recognizing these facts, the Allies secretly tried to coax Italy into joining their side. On April 26, 1915, the Treaty of London was signed. Under this pact, Italy left the Triple Alliance and joined the Allies. Within a month, Italy declared war on Austria-Hungary. In return for Italian cooperation, the Allies promised to grant Italy territorial concessions following the war. When the war ended, the Allies failed to follow through with their promises to Italy. This caused Italy to feel betrayed and, incidentally, helped lead to the rise of Mussolini and Italian fascism in the 1920s. Between the end of 1915 and the beginning of 1916, with the war in full swing, France and Great Britain held a series of secret meetings to draw up plans for the dismemberment of the Ottoman Empire following an Allied victory. Russia was also involved in negotiations to a small degree. The result of these negotiations was the Sykes-Picot Agreement, or the Asia Minor Agreement. The agreement divided up spheres of influence between France and Great Britain. Portions of what is now Syria, Iraq, Turkey, and Lebanon were divided up between the British and the French. Russia was also to get a small portion of land in Turkey. The secret agreement was named after French diplomat François-Georges Picot and British Sir Mark Sykes. Although the agreement was drawn up in secret, it came to light when the Bolsheviks blabbed. See, following the Russian Revolution in 1917, the Allies refused to honor the agreement with the new Bolshevik government. This made the Bolsheviks mad, and to get back at their former allies, a copy of the agreement was printed in the communist newspaper Pravda. In November 1917, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour sent a letter to Jewish leader Walter Rothschild. This letter has come to be known as the Balfour Declaration. In the letter, Balfour expressed Great Britain's support for a Jewish state in the region of Palestine. The Balfour Declaration ultimately led to the League of Nations granting Great Britain control over the region under the Palestinian Mandate of 1922. The interception of the Zimmermann Telegram, or the Zimmermann Note, was an important event that helped sway American opinion toward intervention in World War I. Remember, Up until April 1917, the United States had stayed out of the war. So what was the Zimmermann telegram? It was a telegram sent in January 1917 from Germany to Mexico, inviting Mexico to join the Central Powers. In return for Mexican collaboration, Germany promised to assist Mexico in reconquering portions of the American Southwest. The telegram was named after German State Secretary of Foreign Affairs Arthur Zimmermann. It was intercepted by the British and passed on to the United States. The telegram also indicated Germany would resume unrestricted submarine warfare, which had been temporarily halted in order to not offend the United States. You can imagine how outraged Americans were upon learning about Germany's secret plan to incite Mexican collaboration. Needless to say, Mexico turned down Zimmermann's offer. Russia suffered astounding losses throughout World War I. The unpopularity of the war helped bring about the Russian Revolution of 1917, resulting in the abdication of Tsar Nicholas II and the installment of a socialist government. Upon securing power, the radical Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, moved quickly to withdraw from World War I. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, signed March 3, 1918, formally ended Russia's involvement in World War I. Under the treaty, the Baltic states were given to Germany, and the Ukraine was granted independence. On November 11, 1918, the Armistice of Compiègne ended the fighting of World War I. In a railway car in the Compiègne forest of northern France, German officials agreed to French terms of surrender. However, the official peace treaty ending the war, known as the Treaty of Versailles, did not come about until June 28, 1919, 5 years to the date after Franz Ferdinand's assassination. The Treaty of Versailles required Germany to make territorial concessions, pay enormous reparations, and essentially shoulder the responsibility for the war. Many historians regard the Treaty of Versailles as unduly harsh toward Germany. It has normally been seen as a victor's peace. Many historians also cite the harsh terms of the Treaty of Versailles as a major cause of the rise of Adolf Hitler and his National Socialism during the 1920s and 1930s. Let's review the key terms regarding World War I diplomacy. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in the summer of 1914 sparked a month-long diplomatic crisis among the major European powers, called the July Crisis. Once war broke out, the Triple Entente secretly sought to convince Italy to join its side. In the Treaty of London in 1915, Italy switched sides, leaving the Triple Alliance and joining the Triple Entente. The Sykes-Picot Agreement was another secret plan to divide up the Ottoman Empire between Great Britain, France, and Russia. This plan was drawn up in late 1915 and early 1916. In November 1917, British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour drafted a letter in support of the creation of a Jewish state in Palestine. This document became known as the Balfour Declaration and led to the Palestinian Mandate. The Zimmermann telegram was a telegram sent from the German government to the Mexican government, inviting Mexico to join the Central Powers in return for assistance in reconquering parts of the American Southwest. The Treaty of Brest-Litovsk formally ended Russia's participation in World War I. It was signed March 3, 1918. Finally, on June 28, 1919, the Treaty of Versailles formally ended World War I.